Welcome back to Courtroom Conversations on the Classic Courtroom channel. I'm Dylan Brooks Hamilton, and today we're diving deep into a case that's both fascinating and frustrating in equal measure: the murder of JonBenet Ramsey.
I'm Susan Kelly Ashford, and I'm here with Dylan today to unpack the latest developments in this case. It's been nearly 3 decades since that fateful Christmas in 1996, and JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, is still searching for answers.
And before we get started, if you're enjoying our deep dive into this case, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Classic Courtroom for more.
Absolutely. We appreciate your support. Now, for those who might not be familiar with every detail, let's quickly set the stage. 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey, a child beauty queen, was found dead in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado, the day after Christmas.
And what makes this case so captivating, even after all these years, is that it remains unsolved. The circumstances surrounding JonBenet's death, that ransom note, the intense media scrutiny, it all created this perfect storm of mystery and speculation.
Yes. And it's important to remember the media frenzy that surrounded this case. It was unlike anything we'd seen before, with every detail, every theory, splashed across newspapers and television screens. It really shaped public perception and even, some argue, influenced the investigation itself.
It's against that backdrop that we're looking at this new exclusive interview with John Ramsey in People magazine. He's still fighting for justice for his daughter, and he believes that untested DNA evidence could hold the key to finally solving the case.
And he's specifically calling attention to a few key pieces of evidence: the garrote used to strangle JonBenet, the ransom note found at the scene, and a suitcase discovered near a basement window. He believes these items might contain traces of the killer's DNA.
He's really putting his faith in the advancements in DNA technology, particularly techniques like genetic genealogy, which have revolutionized how we investigate cold cases.
Exactly. With genetic genealogy, investigators can analyze even tiny amounts of DNA and compare them to vast databases of genetic profiles. It's like building a family tree in reverse, potentially leading them to distant relatives of the perpetrator and narrowing down the suspect pool.
Now, what I found really interesting in John Ramsey's interview was his frustration with the Boulder Police Department. He claims they haven't fully utilized available resources and are resistant to outside help. He feels like critical evidence has been overlooked, maybe even mishandled.
There's definitely a tension there. Police departments naturally want to maintain control of their investigations, especially in high-profile cases like this one, where they face so much public scrutiny. On the other hand, you have the families of victims, driven by grief and a desperate need for answers, who might advocate for different approaches or seek outside expertise.
And in this case, John Ramsey specifically mentions that certain pieces of evidence were sent back from labs untested. He even mentioned the garrote, the very weapon used to strangle JonBenet. He seems to be saying, don't just dismiss these items because they were examined years ago. Science has moved on. Give them another look.
And he has a point. Investigative techniques and DNA technology have advanced dramatically in recent years. What might have been considered a dead end in 1996 could potentially yield valuable information today.
So this begs the question, can DNA technology finally solve the JonBenet Ramsey case? Is John Ramsey's unwavering faith in these advancements a realistic path to justice? Or is it a desperate hope clinging to the promises of science?
That's what we're going to explore in this deep dive. We'll examine the specific DNA techniques that could be applied to the evidence, weigh the potential benefits and challenges, and consider the broader implications of using this technology in cold cases. So let's get specific about the potential of DNA testing in this case. John Ramsey has been particularly vocal about wanting further examination of the garrote. Now, back in 1996, DNA testing was in its relative infancy.
Right. It wasn't the commonplace tool it is in investigations today.
Exactly. Back then, they might have needed a larger sample of DNA to get a viable profile. But today, with advancements like touch DNA analysis, they could potentially extract DNA from skin cells left behind when the killer handled the garrote. It might be enough to get a profile, or at least a partial profile of the perpetrator.
And that could be huge. Even if they don't get a perfect match, a partial profile could be used to exclude suspects or narrow down the possibility.
Absolutely. And then there's the ransom note. Now, analyzing handwriting and linguistic patterns has always been part of forensic science. But with touch DNA, investigators might be able to get a DNA profile from the person who wrote or handled that note.
It's incredible to think that even something as simple as touching a piece of paper could leave behind enough DNA to potentially crack a case wide open decades later.
It really highlights how far forensic science has come. And then, of course, there's that suitcase found near the basement window. While John Ramsey didn't specify what he believes might be found there, It's possible there could be trace DNA on it, maybe from hair, skin cells, or even saliva if the perpetrator coughed or sneezed nearby.
And those trace amounts of DNA could then be compared to existing databases, or used to create a genetic profile that can be run through genealogical databases, potentially leading investigators to relatives of the killer.
Precisely. And even if they don't find a direct match, the genetic information could provide clues about the perpetrator's ancestry, physical characteristics, or even potential geographic origins, helping investigators piece together a more complete picture of who they're looking for.
It's like putting together a puzzle, isn't it? With each piece of DNA evidence, investigators are getting closer to a complete picture of the person who committed this crime. But of course, there are challenges and potential roadblocks. DNA analysis isn't a foolproof solution. And even with the most advanced technology, there's no guarantee of a definitive answer.
That's an important point. The DNA might be too degraded, there might not be enough of it to get a viable profile, or the sample might have been contaminated. And then there's the issue of privacy and consent when it comes to using genetic databases. How far should investigators be allowed to go in searching for potential matches? These are complex questions with no easy answers.
It's a delicate balance between pursuing justice and protecting individual rights. But for Jon Ramsey, it seems the potential rewards outweigh those concerns. He's been fighting for nearly 30 years to find his daughter's killer, and he sees DNA technology as his best hope.
And it's hard to argue with the father's determination to get answers, especially after all this time. But it's important to remember that DNA evidence, while powerful, is just one piece of the puzzle. It needs to be considered alongside all the other evidence in the case.
It's a reminder that even in the age of cutting-edge technology, good old-fashioned detective work is still crucial.
Absolutely. DNA evidence can provide leads and narrow down suspects, but it doesn't always tell the whole story. Investigators still need to interview witnesses, examine the crime scene, and piece together all the available evidence to build a strong case.
So as we've seen, Jon Ramsey's plea for further DNA testing in the JonBenet case really highlights the power and the limitations of this technology.
It raises so many fascinating questions. Can science provide answers where traditional investigative methods have fallen short? Can we balance the pursuit of justice with the need to protect individual privacy? And ultimately, can Jon Ramsey find the closure he so desperately seeks after all these years?
These are questions that not only apply to this case, but also reflect broader societal discussions about forensic science ethics and the very nature of truth and justice.
What we can say with certainty is that this case, even after 28 years, continues to captivate our attention. It speaks to the enduring mysteries that haunt us, the power of hope in the face of tragedy, and the relentless pursuit of answers no matter how elusive they may seem.
It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our justice system, the complexities of grief, and the evolving role of science in our lives.
And it leaves us pondering the question, will we ever truly know what happened to JonBenet Ramsey?
Well, we hope this deep dive into the JonBenet Ramsey case has given you some new insights and perspectives to consider. We always appreciate you joining us here on Courtroom Conversations.
And as always, we encourage you to keep those courtroom conversations going. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue exploring the fascinating world of crime, justice, and the law together.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Classic Courtroom for more captivating deep dives into some of history's most intriguing cases. We'll see you in court.